911, what's your emergency? 911, what's your emergency?
Be advised, Car 4 has control of the pursuit. Proceed with caution.
Hello, everyone. How are you? It's good to see everyone tonight. Thank you all for being here. Welcome to Behind the Crime Door. I'm Kristen. For anyone who's new, hey, Rob. Good to see you. Hi, John. Hey, Tech Death. Hi, Melissa. Hey, Joe. Welcome, Derek. Everyone, welcome to my new moderator, Derek Farmer. You guys are probably familiar with Derek if you follow the Delphi case, because he is around in many of the channels, and he's a moderator for me. Unfortunately, his schedule and my schedule just don't cooperate sometimes, so he's not able to be here all the time, but I'm really thrilled to have him here tonight. Hey, Sharon, how are you? Hi, Pigeon Mac. Hi, Danger Dave. I hope you're well. It's good to see you as always. Hi, Sierra. Good to see you. Hi, Indy Pam. Oh, thank you, Pigeon. It was fun to do. I wasn't sure if I could do it, but I thought, heck, I'm going to give it a try. And it was time, 9 months into the channel. I thought it was time to do something different. Hey, David, how are you? Hey, Robin. Good to see you. Thank you for being here. Yeah, Derek, you should have a wrench. You're on my list. You don't have a wrench? I'm in StreamYard, so I can't see. Hold on 1 second. Give me just 1 minute. And let me see what's going on here. Because you should have one. Let's see. Community. I hope I have the right person. I thought I did. Obviously I don't. So hold on a minute. Hey, Derek. Yeah, I did have the right person. Why don't you have a wrench? That's really strange. Let me try to find you again. Hold on. Eric Farmer. Mm. Okay, Derek, why can't I find you? Hang on, guys. Just give me 1 minute. I apologize. Okay, Derek, you should be a moderator now. There you go. There you go. Awesome. Awesome, awesome. Hey, Maria. Hi, Teresa. How are you? Everything is okay. Not sure what happened there. So how is everyone tonight? I hope everyone's doing well. Hi, Mrs. Thang. How are you? Everyone, make sure you go out and like and subscribe, please. It's the best way to help me with my channel. It seems that something has pulled me out of YouTube's algorithm in the last few weeks because my videos are not getting shared or shown anymore, I don't think. So make sure you like and share them, or at least like and subscribe to them. Oh, Joe, I'm sorry. So I can remedy that, Joe. Just give me a few seconds here, because you're here all the time and I don't have a problem with that. So give me 1 moment. Just got to go back here. Okay. I was like, wait a minute. Is he really upset? I don't want him to stop coming. Okay. Yeah, you really are better off without it. Trust me. Creates more problems than you want sometimes. But anyway, you guys, thank you for everyone who does have a wrench. And thank you for everyone who continues to support my channel. I so appreciate all of you. Hey, Rose, good to see you. I was trying. He said no. I'm not going to force the man to have a wrench. Okay, so I hope everybody's been having a good week. The start of the week, we're getting down there. We're getting close. The 13th of December, we're going to be at Christmas here soon, guys. It's hard to believe that it's upon us and we're going to be, dealing with the end of the year and all of that, like, pretty quickly. And I was thinking about it this afternoon actually. I had my little 5-year-old grandson with me all day because my daughter has COVID in her house. And I'm praying that my older grandsons don't get it because they're supposed to go to the Bears Eagles game on Sunday, which is a Christmas present from us for them. So I'm like, I'm just not, I'm just really stressing about that right now. Um, but anyway, so I know that this time of year is very difficult for a lot of people. And my heart goes out to all of you that have difficulty with the holidays, whether it be missing people that are no longer with us, or just not having family to spend time with, or friends that you can spend time with, because everyone is so doggone busy this time of year. I know that it can just be a really difficult time. So reach out to those that you may be thinking might be having a difficult time and just say hello to them, whether it be through social media or a phone call or whatever. Um, so tonight, what I'm going to talk about today or tonight is, could it be possible that this crime, the Delphi murders, is a one and done crime? Is it possible that bridge guy Richard Allen, who has been arrested and is still innocent until he's proven guilty, um, whether or not he could have committed this crime and has never committed a crime before? Um, it got me thinking about those types of crimes. So I wanted to go out and do some research, and it just so happened that somebody on Reddit happened to post a podcast. And I'm going to link the podcast down below in the description so you guys will be able to find it after my live. But I did listen to this podcast. It's called Unraveled, and it's excellent. I highly suggest everyone listen to it. Very good, very well put together, lots of information. And they just really lead you down a path when it comes to murder that I didn't ever understand, I guess, because I've always been so into the John Douglas and um the John Kellys and all the profiling of serial killers, that I didn't even think about what about these killers that do um sorry, that do these crimes. What about these killers that do these crimes and then never do another crime, and they just go on to live their lives and blend in with their community? It's actually very frightening, some of the stuff that I found out. Um so what did you do to her, to Mrs. Thing? What happened? You timed her out. She should be able to come back. She only gets timed out. If you only timed her out, she should be able to come back. And we'll let her know that it was an accident. Okay. So really there's 250,000 unsolved murders in the United States. Unsolved murder leaves the families of these victims in just a horrible um, sense of not knowing what happened to their loved ones and family members, and why it happened to them, why they were targeted. Was it someone who didn't didn't know them? Was it as just a stranger? Why were they murdered? These are the questions that family members are left with um, when they don't have any answers and their cases are left open and unsolved. There are some killers who remain elusive to law enforcement for decades. They've sort of become an enigma of sorts, and these killers are not really all that cunning or smart. Some of them take super high risks and seemingly have no care about being caught. They tend to leave lots of physical evidence at their crime scenes. Sometimes that includes DNA, sometimes fingerprints even. And authorities put all they have into these investigations. Hey, Mary. Hey, Northern Light, Avondale Mama. So good to see you. They actually throw all they have into them. And they interview hundreds, sometimes thousands of witnesses, depending on the case, where it's at, and how big it is. And they take in thousands upon thousands of tips. They pull phone records. They obtain search warrants. Sometimes they take DNA. Hold on one second, guys. I just have to answer this. Just give me a moment. My daughter just let me know they're without power, and it's really cold. It's like 32 degrees. So I'm like, oh Lord, I was worried. I hope it comes back on. Hey Steve, welcome. How are you? Hi Island, how are you? They pull phone records, they obtain search warrants, they get vehicle records, they pull any kind of information that they can try to glean why or how these crimes were committed, who may have committed them, and it's sometimes very, very difficult. They even have the FBI very famed behavioral science unit do a profile on their killer. And one of the things that, speaking about Delphi, is we know the FBI was working on this case and working with investigators within Carroll County early in this investigation. I do believe that a profile was done of the Delphi suspect very early on in the early days. But with these one-off killers, something doesn't work. And these are trained professionals that we're talking about here. They go to school for this, and they go years with no answers in some of these cases. I mean, they work diligently and tirelessly trying to wade through the evidence and all of the statements, witness statements, tips, and it leads them nowhere. Even with these behavioral science experts' profiles, sometimes they end up with many suspects. There's one particular case that I'm going to feature that they had over 200 suspects in this case, and that's a lot of people to look at and to have to figure out if they really had anything to do with the murder or not. And one of the things I think that's hard for us as people who are so-called normal is how do we wrap our heads around how this person can commit such a disorganized or organized murder and leave evidence behind, but yet years later just seemingly get away with it and just float back into society like nothing ever happened. The hardest killer to catch is the killer who targets a stranger and kills and then never kills again. Those are the hardest killers to catch. And the shocking part, you guys, is that there are many, many of these types of killers out there. More than we could ever imagine. There's a whole different type of person out there killing and violently who are not serial killers, you guys. They're not. They hide in the shadows and they lead a very seemingly normal life. And they could actually be someone well known in their community under everyone's nose. They could be a pharmacy assistant. They could be a DJ. They could work at the lumber yard. I mean, it goes on and on. They strike in broad daylight without fear of being caught or detected. And that for me, and I'm sure for you, is hard to comprehend. In 1972, the FBI created the Behavioral Science Unit. At that time, there was no DNA. There were no cell phones. And they didn't even have surveillance like we have today. So they had to figure out a different way to try to find these killers. And they turned to profiling. And we all know of John Douglas and Robert Ressler, the mind hunters. We know about them. We have studied them. We have read their books. We've seen their television shows and how they met with all of these dozens and dozens of serial killers for hours and hours to develop theories and profiles of the type of killers that they were and what led them to become serial murderers. It is still used today extensively. Profiling that's the first thing that most people is going to ask is, what's the profile of this person? And you can get a profile from a murder scene. That is how they can tell what type of person they're dealing with most often. But this approach has been immortalized in a way too, you guys. It's been immortalized in movies and television shows like Silence of the Lambs, Mindhunter, which portray these profilers as super sleuths who solve incredible mysteries that no one else can seem to crack. And it doesn't mean that they're not amazing, because I think we all know that John Douglas is pretty amazing, and he's been able to do some pretty amazing things over his career. And once they started using his profile theory system to try and apprehend these people, serial killers finally had met their match. So what do we think that the FBI profile of Bridge Guy is? Well, is he disorganized? Is this probably a first-time kill for him? I'm going back to what the FBI agent at the very first press conference told us about him. He told us that to look for people who would blend in, but also change their appearance, maybe possibly change their demeanor. Maybe they become more agitated, more have more anxiety, become a drinker all of a sudden, heavily using alcohol, heavily using drugs, that change in that type of behavior. We always heard from Doug Carter that we know this is about power to you. And that's, we'll discuss that in a minute, because we're going to talk about these hypersexualized killers, which it's usually about power to them. And then we have Kim Riley, who does an interview with Michael Catt, and Michael is asking him about DNA and the evidence that we had heard through Doug Rice that they had from the crime scene. And he basically tells him that this person seemingly has never committed a crime before. And hearing that even back then was kind of frightening, because it was like, man, if this is the first time this person has killed, this person's going to be hard to catch, because what's going to lead them to him? A lot of times in these cases, when we have these kinds of horrific killings, which Abby and Libby's most definitely was, you have signs that they've done it before. And we know that Robert Ives talked about signatures and led the public to believe that they were looking at a possible serial killer. But they never came out and really gave us a profile. They never actually came out and told us a true profile for Bridge Guy. And that always bothered me. I do know that they hold their profiles very close to the vest. When I started looking at other cases to cover, I was finding out that a lot of the cases had FBI profiling used in them, but they were not ever made public. So it's not something that's uncommon for them to not share. So that led me to believe, well, it's not like TV, where when we're watching those TV shows, they share the profile. Did Bridge Guy plan this attack? Did he bring what he needed that day? Was he a loner? Not really liking to be around people or to be in public or draw attention to himself? Did he like to stay in the background and was kind of quiet? Those are the kinds of questions that the FBI asks about a person or a crime scene when they're just trying to make up their profile. Those are the kinds of questions that they ask themselves. Sexually predatory murders are a telltale sign of a serial killer. That has always been believed by the FBI since the early 70s when they started profiling. And you've got them with this profile in 2017. They're working the case. We've been told that Richard Allen went to authorities, gave a statement about him being out there that day and on the bridge. And they have this profile, and I believe that they did not profile him correctly. And I believe that because of what I've been reading. I think it's possible. I'm not saying this is absolute fact, guys. This is just my my personal thoughts, okay? I don't want anybody coming at me. But days turn to months, and as we know, months turn to years. And we were nearly coming up on 6 years, and we didn't have an arrest. Now, we don't know yet what was going on for sure during those 5.5 years with the Delphi case. We've been led to believe so many different things, but when you look at Richard Allen, we know so little about him, but some of the things that we do know about him is that, yeah, he did have social media at one time, but his social media kind of just went away. He was shown on social media in his family's social media, but that's the only way that we were able to get a glimpse of him. And it seemed like he was kind of, at least after the murders, was just kind of in the background of events around his family. But they were still taking pictures of him and posting them and all of that. And it makes you kind of wonder about that, which is, again, why I say he was able to hide in plain sight. These guys are scary. I think they're far more scary, even though they only may commit one murder. Hey, I'll be frank, welcome to my channel. To me, they're more frightening than serial killers because it's just unbelievable how they fit into society. I think that that's what is so scary about them. There's a couple of different cases this podcast covers, and one of the cases I was not familiar with, but the other case I was familiar with. The first case that they talked about who was a one-off that took over 30 years to bring to justice. This guy was very well known in the community. It was a smaller community, not like Delphi small, but it was smaller. But he was very well known. He was a very well-known DJ. And he had made a huge business for himself. And he was always boisterous and wanted to be out there in public, and completely blows that profile that they're loners and all of that away. And again, when you think of Ted Bundy, he didn't always fit that profile either. There's some of them that like the limelight. So he actually commits a murder of a school teacher, 25-year-old 6th grade school teacher, in her apartment. He rapes and murders her and leaves DNA evidence all over her, under her, around her. There's just tons of evidence, but they couldn't find him. And he actually, after he committed that crime, he left there and went home and ended up sleeping with his wife, which she didn't realize until 2018 when he was arrested, which is scary. For everyone out there who is questioning why Richard Allen's wife would not have known about this, you know? And we rush to judgment way too much as a society, and we think that we know everything when it comes to stuff, and we hear all these things on the internet now. We read all this stuff on the internet. A lot of people actually get their news from the internet, and so anyway, anything's possible, but we don't know about these people like we think we do. This guy went back to his life as if nothing had ever happened. He actually proposed to his fiance just a couple of months before he committed this horrific murder. And he married her a couple of months later. And so they weren't truly married when he came back to their house, but for the most part. But anyway, so he did this. And then he just continued with his life. He never absolutely talked about it to anyone. He never talked about it to anyone. And they couldn't find him. But yeah, he was established in the community and he was well known. And his name was Raymond Rowe. It is widely believed that sexually motivated killers are driven by this deep and intense fantasy life that they have, and that they are unable to stop once they start. Once they commit their first kill, they just become serial killers, and the profiles are built around this premise about them not being able to stop. And I think one of the things that you'll find out if you do listen to this podcast, when they talk about that aspect of them not being able to stop, what they're talking about is our good friend here on YouTube, John Kelly, is the person who gave the very first theory about an addictive killer, a person who becomes addicted to killing. And there is a theory about all of that. And John Kelly's the one who surmised that and theorized it. And that was built into the serial killer profile, basically. And I think that they're finding out now that it may not be the case. All the time. The one and done killer doesn't match up to this profile at all. They either get control of the urge to kill, or they find out that the reality did not fit their fantasy. And how many of these one and done killers are actually living amongst us? I think that's the scary question. The scary answer is there's a lot. So the Golden State Killer was the first person arrested using genetic genealogy in 2018. The next person arrested was a killer named William Talbot. We'll talk about him in a minute. And the third person in 2018 was Mr. Rowe, Raymond Rowe. Now, they were all caught within just months of each other. And Raymond Rowe was caught 26 years after he murdered the school teacher. And it took 30 years to catch Talbot, and over that to catch the Golden State Killer. Since those arrests, those 3 arrests in 2018, genetic genealogy has been used to solve an additional 200 cases. These one and done killers, you guys, are everywhere. A question that was put to William Talbot's best friend, childhood friend, and early adult friend, how does it feel to know you were so physically close to someone who was a horrific killer? He was absolutely dumbfounded. He said that he absolutely had no indication that this man could have ever done that. Although he did cite that he did have a temper, and he did see it once, and compared it to the devil. But it was only one time, and he never thought that much about it until after he was arrested. William Talbot was, excuse me, accused and convicted of rape and murder in 1987 is when it happened, a young couple from Canada. And the girl was 18 and her boyfriend was 20, and his father sent them down to Seattle to pick up some heating and cooling supplies that he needed, and had them use his van. And the van that they used was a custom van that had big, large windows on the sides of it. It was a custom van. And their whole idea was they were going to sleep in this van and not have to get a hotel room or anything. And then they would come back. That was the plan. The kids were very close to their families. Dave, you take care, okay? And be safe out there. And so they did. They drove down to Seattle, and then they weren't heard from, and their families became extremely worried. And so they came down to search for them. And they first found the 18-year-old female. They found her body, and she had been shot in the back of the head. She had rolled down a embankment into a ditch, and that's how they found her. And police were thinking that it was possibly a boyfriend murder kind of situation because they hadn't found her boyfriend, Jay, and they couldn't figure out what was going on. Well, it was just a few days later, and they did find Jay 70 miles away. He too had been killed horrifically. And then they found the van in another location. But nothing that would lead them to the killer, even though there was DNA everywhere. They had all of this DNA. And And when William Talbot committed this murder of these two young people, he basically just kept a clean profile life, never did anything else except get a ticket for speeding or parking violations for 30 years. He didn't do anything to bring attention to himself. No one ever suspected a thing. Hey, Sleuth, how are you? So there was no profile that would cover this type of killer. They may never have been identified had it not been for genetic genealogy. And it is the most powerful tool to ever come to us in the criminal world and the crime world since DNA. William Talbot was convicted of murder. He was given 2 counts of aggravated murder and 2 life sentences. He had other felonies. I think there were 6 other felonies he was accused of and convicted on, and he got 10 years for each. So I think he ended up getting 2 life sentences plus 120 or 130 years. But he had fooled everyone in his life, everyone around him, including his very best friend. And they interviewed him. They interview his best friend. And he's like, we used to go snorkeling together. We used to do treasure hunts together, and we both loved photography. And he loved to do pictures of all kinds of things. And it wasn't until later that he realized, after he was arrested, his best friend realized that they were taking pictures at the locations where he dumped these bodies way back then. And that he actually lived with him for a short period of time, him and another roommate in the same house. And he's like, my God, he lived and slept with us in the same house. This guy who did this brutal killing. He still can't wrap his head around it. And he said the hardest thing for him was to remember, going back to the time when the couple disappeared, that there was a day that during that time period when they were searching for them, that he happened to drive past William's family's home and saw the van in their driveway. And he said the only reason that he would remember that was because this was a custom van with these windows. Hey, Ellen, welcome. Thank you so much for coming. And it haunts him to this very day that he actually saw that van. He said he found him likable. They just spent a lot of time together. And hey, Sleuth, thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Merry Christmas to you too. I hope you have a wonderful one with your children and your family. I really do. You deserve it. So he did say that he did not get along with his family. He yelled at his family a lot. They yelled back. But he was never violent. So, that's kind of how this person was described. That's how these people seem to be described. They can just absolutely become these crazed killers and then just completely meld back into society like you don't even know that it's possible that they did this crime. After that happened, he lost touch after he kicked him out as a roommate because he wasn't paying his rent. And they lost touch after that. And it wasn't until his arrest when his aunt called him and told him that William had been arrested. When these killers were identified, these 3 killers we just talked about in 2018, it exposed a gaping hole in profiling and the investigative process. The recognition of the one and done killer that they had never really thought about, or if they did, they just didn't include it with profiling. This type of killer had not been studied by the profilers at all, and because of this, killers missed their mark. They wandered free for decades, living their lives and living amongst the communities where their horrible crimes took place. These guys weren't killing somewhere else and going home. These guys were killing right in their actual communities. And it wasn't because of advancements in behavioral analysis that these guys got caught. It was because of genetic genealogy. He had no social media presence. He wasn't in any photos from his family. He was seemingly cut off from his family. It just didn't make sense about William because everybody was talking about how kind he was and how easygoing he was. And it was like, well, why doesn't he have a relationship then with his family? That just didn't seem, that seems strange. Well, come to find out, when he was younger, he was very violent to his family. He would assault them. He even tried to sexually assault his sister, who she went and told her mother what he had done. And her mother said, well, you know, he doesn't have a lot of friends. And that's kind of what boys do when they don't fit in. And I'm like, well, that is a very dysfunctional family for her to say that to her daughter. Good Lord. But William Talbot didn't match the profile that the FBI had made for this killer. He didn't match it at all. And there are a lot of people killing who has never killed before. And everyone has secrets, you guys. Everyone. Your secret might be that you were sexually assaulted as a child, or it might be that you killed someone. I mean, everybody has secrets. Would profiling be able to catch one and done killers? Paul Holes speaks on this podcast and says that the previous models are very problematic. Yes, Sleuth, I agree with you. I agree with you. Because they seemingly do have this aura about them where everyone thinks that they're good guys and that there's nothing wrong with them. But I believe that they do have something wrong. They're hiding that one thing, that one secret. There are reasons that the police can be fooled. Because what they found out is that serial killers are not the only types of killers out there. They used to call them in the 70s lust murders. And they talked about them having, like I said, this addiction type of fantasy life. It's like they were just driven by this fantasy life that they had. And it was core to the person of who they are. And serial killers have always been thought of that they never stop. And we've heard that. A serial killer will never stop until he's forced to. Well, we know that's not true. BTK, Dennis Rader, is a pure example. He quit for 14 years. He quit. The Golden State Killer quit. They don't all have to continue and continue and continue, which leads to believe that the possibility of the addiction theory that John Kelly put out may not hold up for everyone. And they may not all be addicted. They may be able to make choice. And they may choose. They may choose to do this, to do this behavior. Because when they have these one and done murders out there and they can't solve them and they become a statistic of an unsolved murder for 20, 30, 40 years, whatever it may be, it falls under, well, that must have been the work of a serial killer that we have not yet identified, or that we couldn't link that murder to that killer. But we know he was active during that time period, so it must be related to him. And that's not the case. Because their profile doesn't fit that serial killer that was active in that area. Now, John Kelly is amazing. Don't get me wrong. I'm not here to say anything bad about him. I love him. I support his channel. I think he's just an amazing guy who's been through enough, and he's talked to enough of these killers to know what he's talking about. He talks about how they're absolutely stimulated by the fantasy of this killing and going, into complete control mode. And then he kills them and, wants to do it again. These individuals that John Kelly talks about are very hypersexual individuals. There are some killers that they have talked to that, to be sexually satisfied, sometimes 4 or 5 times a day is what they were wanting from their significant others or girlfriends or whatever. And they're all fantasy driven. But these one and done guys are a lot different, and it is scary. And I thought when I was reading it and I was listening to it, one of the things I thought about was I wanted to share it with you guys because we've all talked about this over and over, even before Richard Allen ever became on the radar. We asked ourselves, could this be a first-time kill for this person? Could this be not a serial type offender? And everything that we're seeing and that kind of pointing to us says that that's probably the case. But see, Ellen, there's a number of them that I was reading about where their wives left them for that very reason. Because of them being so hypersexual. And that, again, that comes out that I don't know that we can consider that normal behavior, but it's something they demand. It's something that they want. If they're not going to get it satisfied, what do they do for that? Or how do they get that? I love Ken. I love Ken Maines. I think that they are working on profiling. I think that it needs to be updated for sure. Like anything else, you can't just continue to use this model that was built in 1972 in 2022. Because I think it's going to say a lot when we've got, like I said, when we've got this new tool with the genetic genealogy and how it's helped us locate these guys that we would have never, ever been able to find before, that have gone under the radar for so long. It leads you to wonder, what other crimes or what other things they've done in their lives, if not with Bridge Guy and Richard Allen. If he has a clean record, what would cause him to one day go out and murder 2 teenage girls? And I think that is going to be telling in this case. Boy, isn't it? There is definitely narcissistic abuse everywhere. Everywhere. Let's see. Let's go back here and see what I missed. What did Sleuth have to say? Looks like he was talking to... we've heard about Richard Allen from, like Sleuth said, from coworkers who said he was a nice guy. Even Tobe Lesenby said, helpful. I mean, he was in there. He interacted with him. They've all interacted with him, in my opinion. That was the other thing. There's a great video. I know I didn't post it, but hold on a second. I want to tell you guys about it. Oh, where is he? Where is he? It's Andy. There he is. Andy. I think it was him. Here it is. Hold on a second, guys. I want to grab it. I'm going to drop it. I'll drop this in the chat for you guys. But if you guys want to get an idea of what the CVS building or what the CVS looked like that Richard Allen worked in, this is a video from Indie Archive. I love his channel. It's all about, he just does drone footage and just footage. And he goes into the store and actually walks around the store and just uses his cell phone to video it. I can't get over how big that store is. That store is ginormous. We have multiple CVSs in my community. In fact, there's one just up the road from us, and it's like a postage stamp compared to this one. I mean, this thing is huge. I could not believe how big it was. But anyway, I really like his channel. Again, it's Indie Archive. He does a lot of good drone footage of the bridge and all of that. And for those of you who didn't see my show on last Thursday, they are redoing the Monon High Bridge, and I'm sure you guys have probably seen some of the video that's been done. Indy does a drone flyover of it, but they are really going to town on it, and they're going to have that resurfaced and relayed probably really quick. And again, somebody said, why are they redoing the bridge in December when it is so cold here in the Midwest? We're freezing right now. And the only reason that I can even understand that they would be doing it now is because they want to be able to have a jury be able to walk and come out there onto that bridge if they want to be able to see where this happened. Because they usually do take jurors to locations when the murders have happened in a location such as this. Yeah, I hope we get to hear from Richard or people close to him. Word at Kristen seems like profiles would naturally change through time. Technology and trends like incel would change profiles. Yes. And again, I would think so. And the thing about genetic genealogy is there's been a lot of people complaining about it. They feel it's unconstitutional. And it really makes me wonder if this is not going to be something that becomes an issue, perhaps, with law enforcement being able to utilize it. I mean, I would hate to see it go away for sure. But with that being said, William Talbot, after he was sentenced, had his sentence overturned by an appellate court because they seated a juror, who was a young mother who actually said during questioning to become a juror that she didn't know if she could be objective or not in the case. And she had a new young daughter, and she just didn't know if she could be objective. And the defense wanted her to be excused and not be made a juror, but the prosecution went ahead and wanted her seated. And because they seated her after she told them she didn't know if she could be objective, they threw it out on appeal. It is now being heard, I think it was in May of this year, that the Washington State Supreme Court is supposedly hearing this case on whether or not to uphold the conviction or to throw it out. If they throw out his conviction, he will be retried, just so you know. But that's why these cases are so important. And that's why what happens around these cases is so important. And we can sit there and talk, forever about things that we shouldn't discuss now that the case is going to trial and the things that can happen. But this is exactly what Cop Faxx, Perry Freeman, and Steve from True Crime Web talk about when we talk about things that can hurt cases. And how important it is, even in picking a jury, that you make sure that you're seating people that answer those jury questionnaires without saying, well, I don't think I can be impartial or objective. I don't think you want that person sitting on your jury, because just like that, it's something that can be looked at on appeal and they can overturn it. Because it means that that person probably already had formed an opinion about William Talbot. And they're, so, but yeah, as far as do I think Richard Allen is one of these types of killers? I mean, Richard Allen is innocent until proven guilty. I think that what I will say is Bridge Guy could very well be a one and done. So it's very, very possible. I will be interested to see how they present him when Richard Allen, when they bring him to trial, and what the people, because the defense is going to try to paint him, I'm sure, as this, nice, upstanding, helpful person who works in customer service and who's all about helping people and meeting people's needs, taking care of their health, being a concerned citizen, and all of that. I believe that that's probably what we're going to hear from them, which is, makes sense. That's their job. The other thing that you guys may have not heard about, I'm sure you probably have, is that his attorneys put in a motion for the court to allow them to hire all of these experts and to spend all of this money on his defense. Of course, they have to ask the court for that money because Richard Allen doesn't have the money to pay for it. And so they have granted that. So they are going to allow the defense team to hire all these experts. I did see somebody comment about that on one of the posts about the motion, and they made the comment he should lose everything trying to defend himself. And that's not how it works in this country. He's innocent until proven guilty. And we need to remember that, because innocent people do get arrested. Innocent people do get charged with crimes. And we can't forget that or lose sight of that. And so we need to always keep that in the forefront of our minds when we're discussing this case. It will be very interesting to see the evidence. I will say this. I know that a lot of people were talking about genetic genealogy back with where did Young Bridge Guy's sketch come from? I don't believe that the Young Bridge Guy sketch came from genetic genealogy, but I do think that genetic genealogy would prove really interesting in this case. I would love to see what would happen with genetic genealogy of Richard Allen and what Parabon would pull up as, like, say, a picture of him when he was 25, when he was 45, and when he's 55, say. It would be really interesting to see, because that's what they do. Parabon takes the DNA that they have and they pull a genetic profile of it where they can actually build a face around what that person's going to look like. They're going to know what their ethnicity is. They're going to know their hair color. They're going to know their eye color. They're going to know all of those features, their basic facial features, and based on who they are and where they come from, where their background is. That was one of the interesting things about Parabon when they did it for these three killers that I just talked to you guys about. Because one of the killers' description of eyewitnesses said that he was blonde-haired and blue-eyed. And when they did the Parabon nanolab genealogy with the DNA in the beginning, they came back with his picture, and they said he's definitely not blonde and he's definitely not blue-eyed. And Raymond Rowe was not. He was dark-haired. So, with brown eyes. So it does tell you that eyewitnesses can be wrong. And eyewitnesses are not always reliable, but it's interesting to look at all of that information. And I, like the rest of you, am very anxious to find out what is going to be. Hold on one second. What was I going to say? How was I going to say this? What's going to happen at the bail hearing, and what the defense is going to say, because I do think we're going to find out a lot about that, and it's fastly approaching. We only have 2 months to go to it, and I think we're going to know a lot more then. But I also will say, you guys, don't be looking anytime soon for the trial, because I don't believe, even though they've scheduled it, it's not going to happen. There's just too much discovery in this case. And as long as he continues to profess his innocence, which is exactly what William Talbot did, to this day, that man has not admitted what he did, even though the DNA matched. And I think it was like 1,800 million or 1,800 billion to 1 or something like that it wasn't him. I mean, and he still says it's not him, and he's innocent. And so I don't really look for this guy, Richard Allen, to cave. I think he's going to continue to say he's innocent. I'll be really surprised if that doesn't change. Of course, it would be good if he did. It would save, if he would confess, it would save the family from having to listen to the court case. But again, all of us would be disappointed because we would want to know what was going on. So there is that too. But that's all I had for you guys tonight. Not going to be a long night tonight at all. I wanted to touch on that because I thought it was super interesting and super important. I'm going to post the name of the podcast in the chat for you guys. But that's how you can get to it. It is called Unraveled, and it's definitely worth listening to, season 5. And somebody told me that they are doing a special on what is the Discovery Plus. You guys can find them on Discovery Plus. They're also not just doing a podcast, they're doing a TV show. So make sure you check them out because I think it was definitely worthwhile. But I appreciate all you guys being here tonight and listening. And do you guys have any questions or any comments that you want me to talk about before we go? Or yeah, you're right. Sometimes we can't do anything about people growing up to be criminals. And it's the truth. But yet, we have people wanting to throw family members, under the bus and throw them in jail because somebody in their family commits murder or commits some kind of a crime. Like they should have known ahead of time that was going to happen. And I think we can all see, if we really try to open our minds to things, that that's not true. There's a lot of people that do things that we have no idea or no way of knowing what they're doing or what they're up to. What was I going to say? The other thing I wanted to touch on before I leave, we've been following Quentin Simon's case, you guys. They did arrest his grandmother. It is not related to his disappearance and murder. It's related to his it's related to the child court proceedings. I think what might be happening is that they're going to charge her with neglect because she left him in the care of the person that she was supposed to protect him from, which was her daughter. That's the reason she had custody of him. And I do think that is what's going on there in family court, but we'll just have to wait and see. Hey, Derek, you are so welcome. I have a really good community here. Everybody is always so welcoming and kind. And thank you so much, Derek, for being here tonight. I wish you could be here every night. I really do want to have you on my channel, bring you on and have you talk about Delphi. I always enjoy listening to you when you talk about it. And make sure, Derek, that you check out Tech Death. He does the music for me in my outro. So you're going to hear it here pretty soon. But he's amazing and a great musician and a really great person. Omad, what's he say? I think these are more decent, mostly decent acting men with dark thoughts who suddenly seize an opportunity and commit a crime and stop. So the likelihood of getting caught is smaller. Could very, very well be. And it could be just exactly like the podcast said, that they go out, they have this fantasy, the opportunity presents itself. they act on it, and then it doesn't live up to the fantasy. The reality is not at all what they thought in their heads, and so they don't ever commit again. It's very possible. But but anyway, Maria, thank you so much, my dear, for being here. Hey, everyone, make sure you go check out True Crime Maria. She downloaded a new video or uploaded a new video today. She hasn't uploaded in months. So you guys go check it out. It's on the Idaho murders. It's wonderfully done, as always. Love her. And she does such good work. Love you guys, and I will talk to you all on Thursday night. Please be safe out there. Everyone take care, and always be kind to one another and everyone else. Good night, you guys. Have a good evening.